Okay. Let's see. Ah, man. Okay. I'm gonna wait for a minute. Man. I'm more to playing as I got the D3. Got on a D3 line playing WCPPL. Hey, nice, Nick. Good for you, man. Yeah, the Phoenix Rising guys are awesome. So I'm happy for you. That's really cool. And that's a very successful org too. If you stick with those guys, they'll treat you nice. Like I think the owner's name is Dan. Maybe. I don't know why I'm forgetting, but he's a really nice guy. Really, really good dude. So you're in good hands if you stick with him. Okay. I'm going to wait for just a minute. I realize this is going to be posted on my YouTube channel and nobody wants to watch me just like idle for however many minutes. But now that we are back, I'm going to wait for a second. 1 second. Let's post the link. So if this happens again, we're done. We're out. And people are going to be super confused when they come to my YouTube channel and watch the first part of this stream and be like, what the heck happened here? You'll notice I'm drinking a Dr. Pepper because I need comfort. That's super upsetting, but that's okay. So we're gonna continue the topic. I'm just gonna kind of recover the pocket play sort of topic because I think the first half of the stream is just going to be essentially about tactics and strategy and stuff like that. So if you guys certainly have specific scenarios and situations that you want me to cover, it could even be specifically relating to a layout, feel free to shoot it over my way. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going. So, all right, pocket play. So as Dan Halliday had said just before the stream, I don't know if you guys even caught me talking about it before the stream died, but essentially playing the pocket is to just play tight in your bunker and shoot zones. And it's essentially zone control. And you're trying to contain them out of the wide portions of the field. You're trying to keep them out of what would typically be a secondary bump or in even some cases a primary bump, right? These are the zones you're wanting. This is the zone you're wanting to contain them in. So playing the pocket only works if you shoot people off the break that are otherwise trying to go past these zones. Because if you try to play pocket play, which would normally require you to be in bunkers that only have certain angles available, and they get past those bunkers, you are no longer playing pocket. You have to play heads up and fight and get out of your positioning, right? That just would be required. So if you can't hit your shots off the break, it's pretty hard to play pocket play. It's possible to move up the field and still try to contain somebody, but the problem is that the closer up the field you go, the more susceptible you are to being run down. So if you, for example, start in this dead zone and you're trying to shoot the Dorito runner to keep them out of this bunker, but they survive and get to the Dorito 2, well, now your response, if you're still wanting to contain them, would have to be to get up to this tower. Well, actually, you can't even see that, but maybe your response would have to be to go to the 50 and then shoot this and hold this zone. But now the problem is you're super susceptible to being run down. Okay? So just know, if you're playing the pocket, you got to shoot them off the break. Okay? Oftentimes, people will double up when they'll double up a bunker if they're trying to play pocket. Or in many cases, if they're playing pocket, you'll shoot cross zones. Some layouts are really good at this. I'm not sure this one is. It doesn't look like it. This is kind of a bad example, but we're gonna just forget about what this layout is specifically. But in many layouts, playing the pocket might mean that these people, sorry, one second. In many cases, playing the pocket might mean that these people end up crossing up off the break. The number 2s do, and then the number 3 does whatever. In this case, obviously, this layout doesn't really allow for that. But, or rather, it might be something like this and then this, right? Again, not to say that this is really a good idea for this layout in particular. And then otherwise, the front players might get super dug in and get an angle that watches for the up the center bump. Okay, so then maybe instead of that, you've got something like this. Okay, and then the front players. So you ultimately, you have essentially a ton of zone control. Okay, the important thing to, and you're trying to avoid fights, right? You're trying to shoot the zone for a certain period of time. Sometimes it might be, we're going to hold this until they get antsy because we know they will, and that's when we'll land our kills, right? So oftentimes you'll hold these zones for as long as you keep them out of these zones that you're controlling, and you hopefully score a kill because they get antsy. If obviously they cross the zone and you don't get the kill, then you know, you got to change up your plan. You got to do something different. Okay. Something to be aware of is that, oh shoot, I think it just left my mind. Well, anyway, just know that there's a certain point in time in which just sitting here holding these zones might not be how you win the point. But hopefully you're only playing zone control like pocket play if you're in the lead, or you're trying to like specifically counter your opponent's, oh, that's what I was going to say. Or you're trying to specifically counter your opponent's tendencies. But what you want to make sure is that you, oh my gosh, I just forgot again. I don't know how this is happening. Oh, you don't want to double up on the same job. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you're playing in the pocket, you don't want 2 people holding the same zone, okay? Because that's not even the same zone. You don't want 2 people doing the same job because that's a waste of guns. It's a waste of resources. If 2 people are holding the same gap, then that's a mistake in pocket play. Okay, it's true generally in paintball. You don't want 2 people holding zones, but specifically to pocket play, you want everybody doing their own thing. Now, it also means that you should apply some kind of logic to the zones you want to control. So for example, I'm not saying that this guy can necessarily see this gap because of this wedge right here. Try to just imagine this is like some random field. But let's say, for example, this guy wanted to hold the zone just past this god, and then the god wanted to, or rather the can behind him wanted to hold the zone just in front of that. Well, what's the reason for that, right? Because if you're trying to stop the number 1 from getting into the snake, well, it's kind of irrelevant depending on which bunker the snake guy is in for both of these people to be doing that job, right? If the snake guy is only as far as this god bunker, well, then this dude is doing his job and he's doing it effectively. Whereas this guy who's then just pumping paint in this zone is not doing a good job because there's no reason to do that. So rather than having to account for this on like a case-by-case basis, you generally speaking want to just like hold zones that just make sense from where you're shooting them, right? So I guess if we were to use this layout specifically, it might be that, actually, I don't even know where that gap is. Let's just find it really quick. Okay, so it's right there. So in this case, it would be that the number 2 on the snake side's job would be to just shoot this gap all day. And then maybe this guy here would shoot some other gap, maybe something like that, right? So generally speaking, you don't want to do the same jobs. Now, it could be the case that this guy, again, we'll imagine he can see this. It may be that he's trying to shoot for a corner guy, and this dude is shooting this gap to stop a snake guy. Those are meaningfully different because you'll be likely shooting too high to stop the snake guy. Otherwise, he'll just go underneath your paint and get into the snake. So that's something to keep in mind. Should you avoid going too wide off the break to play high survivability bunkers in the pocket? Yes. So it all depends on the situation you're in a particular like point. So obviously, if we were to take zero context into play, then generally what you want to do is increase your survivability while also increasing your visibility. Okay. So if that means that your survivability is that you have to stick to these bunkers, but by doing so you have great angles, then that's great. You should do that. But if you're trying to play the pocket and you're sending 2 guys out to like wide bunkers and then establishing some kind of job from there, it's not really playing the pocket at that point. But that isn't to say, like, playing the pocket mostly concerns the number 2s and 3s and maybe one of your number 1s. Okay. Typically when you're playing the pocket, there's a lot of sometimes, like, let's say you're not surviving getting into the snake, and you know that your opponents are going to come at you the next point. You know that they're like really aggressive, and that's the reason why you're struggling to win points. Well, it might be that you say to yourself, okay, well, let's not risk our snake guy out to the corner or to the snake off break or to his primary bunker, the god. Maybe instead what we'll do is we'll double up the snake side, and then we'll get one gun looking heads up, which will be this front snake guy, and the other guy looking cross. Again, you can't really do that on this layout, so it might be that you send 2 guys to this bunker and then your snake guy here, right? So that way you've got this kind of cross contain, and then you've got this snake guy here, and then this dude is here, and then maybe your Dorito guy is somewhere here, right? But the idea, there's lots of reasons why you would use the pocket to win a point. And again, context really matters, okay? I would say that in the situation where your opponents are really aggressive and you're having a hard time containing that aggression, playing the pocket might be a solution. But again, you have to hit your shots, because if you don't hit your shots and you've got 2 people doubled up on this bunker, a guy here, and a guy here, you're going to get absolutely murdered, because it's going to be really impossible. It's going to be really hard for you to break out of this containment if they got into the snake off the break. Because as soon as they do, and you try to bump out wide like this against any good team, they're going to chop you. They're going to do whatever they can. They'll risk their body. They'll throw as much pain as they can to stop you from getting out. And this is not really the subject for tonight, but I'll just mention it very quickly. That's one of the reasons why, like, when people ask, I don't know when I should be gunfighting and when I shouldn't be gunfighting. And my response to that is almost always, you should look to fight intelligently. Like, you should look to gunfight for intelligent reasons, okay? In the case where you find yourself in this trapped containment because you've played the pocket, that looks like a penis, and they're running down, they're barreling down the snake. This is a situation in which this guy absolutely should fight to the death until he can get out to here, okay? And I don't care how many times you fight the dude that's stopping you, you have to put that guy in and you have to get out of here. Okay. Now, again, the problem that you run into now, if we even apply more context to this, is that if this dude is the one who's stopping you, but all the while, because of this containment, like this is what happened against New Orleans Hurricanes when we played them. But if you were here and you're trying to go this direction and you're just fighting the dude heads up, tooth and nail, well, if it takes you like 15, 20, maybe even 30 seconds to gain control before you can kick out, it might even be that they give you control. But the reason that they'll do that is because they've gotten a guy in this position now. And now he's setting up a trap. So you have to be very, very careful about that, right? And in some cases, you know, like if I were to try to just get to the God bunker here, it would be fine. But obviously, as we've seen, if I get here, I can't see that can anymore. And so I might think, okay, nobody can stop me. And then boom, all of a sudden, they've got a guy right here who's just shooting your pack, shooting your legs, right? So you have to be super, super cautious. A big mistake that people make is because they feel this pressure of, oh my gosh, we're about to lose because we tried to play the pocket, we couldn't contain them, and now I have to respond by going to the corner or matching them into the snake. If you're not careful and you take too big of a bite to just do this right off the break or even do that, then those types of traps, those high level intelligent traps, are what will kill you all the time. So just know that, like, if they get into the snake right away, you have, like, off the break, if they get into the snake off the break, you have 3 to 5 seconds to beat the guy in front of you in a gunfight and then match it to get out of this trap. You have, like, that's as much time as you got. And that still might not even be enough, because the guy, if their home guy was running up to the center of the field from the break, he'll be in position to kill you. So just know that the farther into the game you get, the less bigger bites you can take, and the more cautious you have to be of the middle as you start to make those moves. Got my first tournament in D6 in 2 weekends. Is Florida the only? I think Florida's the only state that does D6. Is that true? Or is there another state that does D6? I'm not sure. The catch is that my teammates are all 13 while I'm an adult. Any tips on how to effectively coach them? Holy cow. Alberto, welcome. How to coach 13-year-olds. Eric, the only piece of information I need before I can give you any advice is, are you actually coaching them, as in, like, you're not playing, or are you player coaching them? Because those are two different things. So whenever you answer that, I'll give you my response. Okay, back to zone control. Back to pocket play. What are some other reasons why you'd play the pocket? Playing the pocket is a really good way to waste middle players' time. Okay, So for example, if your opponents were to take a very aggressive up off the break push in the center, but they were to take relatively conservative bunkers after that, this is a really, really good way to like fatigue this guy or to exhaust him and confuse him. Okay. Because what he's going to try to do off the break is he's going to try to establish a kill, some kind of kill early, because you're trying to be really aggressive up the field, right? That's the reason why you would take a center push off the break, is because you're wanting to kill somebody or catch them early. So if this guy gets here and he's looking for bodies to kill, but there's nobody there, you are effectively playing a 5v4 because this guy's totally useless. Now, it might be that he starts getting aggressive and being like, okay, I got to do something. I got to like make a play. But even still, that's really, really dangerous for them. Okay. Because if you're super dug in, if you've got really, really dug in positioning, or maybe even let's say you've got a bit wider positioning, it takes a simple head check from everybody or from anybody at any point in time, right? It takes a simple head check to chop up the dude that's going up the middle. Okay. And that's why when you see at high level, I see if my room cam works. 1 second. Sorry guys, don't judge the mess. Oh, my room cam does not work. Okay. We won't worry about it then. Or we'll come back here. So that's why, where's my gun? Oh, my gun's in the laundry room. I won't get it. But that's why oftentimes when you see people holding angles, if you watch raw footage of like D2 and semi-pro, you'll see people oftentimes they're shooting heads up and then they're going like this. Sorry, you can't really see me. Shooting heads up and then going like this and looking and checking up the center of the field. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Look, go like this. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Check cross. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Look up the center. Shoot, shoot, shoot. That's really an important skill to learn, just generally speaking, but it's super applicable when you're trying to play the pocket. Let them have fun, Eric. Player coach will do, Chris. Yeah, I wouldn't assume that you wouldn't let them have fun, but yeah, I think being positive is the most important thing you can do. Obviously, if you're if you're trying to approach like I don't even know if this would be the right term, like a deontology approach to this, and or maybe like an altruistic approach, you might be willing to sacrifice your own enjoyment or reasons for playing in the tournament to help benefit these kids. But like if you're trying to just play it for your own enjoyment, it's kind of a tough situation. Like if you're playing to win the tournament, it's going to be pretty hard. And I don't know what advice I would give to you in that situation, because anything I give you is probably not going to work. But if you're like, I want this to be the best experience for everybody involved, being super positive and being a great example of like, because what you bring to the table that they don't have is emotional regulation. So you bring stability. That's about aside from like any sort of skill over them, the biggest thing you bring, in my opinion, would be stability, emotional stability. If they haven't played very many tournaments, or if they haven't played any tournaments at all, and maybe even this is your first tournament or whatever, all that really matters is that you help regulate their emotions and be a good example of like how to problem solve or to handle stress. In my opinion, that would be a really good outcome of a tournament like that. To be like, hey guys, we did a really good job. We won that point. Let's go into the second point with our heads up high. Like, we can do this. We're doing well. Or you lose the point, or maybe you lose 2 points in a row and you're like, okay guys, hey, it's okay. Like, we're on to the next point. It's a new point. It's 0-0. Like, don't take this point into the next match, whatever. And just kind of keep reminding them that it's okay, that the stress is fine. They're not in any sort of danger. That's, to me, like the best outcome. Like, that would do more for those players than any words you could give them. Don't know if we're the only team that does D6, but no team that I've talked to would let new players play D5. I asked because I wanted to play 5-man, but D6 is all 3-man. Only state. I'm definitely not expecting to win. And yes, I'm willing to sacrifice my own enjoyment. One of the players is my little brother's. It's all our first. Oh, nice. Awesome. Well, that's so cool, dude. That's actually a really, really cool experience. I'm actually really happy for you. I think that'll be fun. Okay. Very good advice. Thank you. I agree. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Okay. Maybe let's see if we can think of one more example of playing the pocket. One thing that's really important is that pocket play is used to gain control of the field and then to suffocate your opponents. So you shouldn't just shoot zones the entire time you want to play pocket in a point. And certainly if something happens where, let's say, you get 2 kills off the break on one side of the field, you should absolutely push that advantage. The only exception to that would be if you're like super in the lead. Okay, if you're in the lead in a series, like 3 points up, again with like, or maybe even 4 points up, 5 points up, plenty of time left, you don't need to push that. Just chill. Like, let them make the mistakes. Just keep holding your zones, but still play correct paintball, right? If you got a kill on, if you got 2 kills off the snake side of the field and you got a bunch of people like crossed up, for example, well, if you kill 2 people over here, then this dude should just play the outside of his bunker. This dude should just play heads up and just try to wrap and suffocate. Okay, chop off the field. Don't let them break out, and then just hold it. People will throw a towel. Like good teams, even like decent teams, will recognize what's happening, and if it's like even a 3v5, they'll call the point if it's been like 2, 3, 4 minutes. But still, you want to play proper paintball, right? Like if you get 2 kills off the snake side, you don't want to, 2 kills off the snake side, you don't want to, as the front player, keep holding some kind of crossfield zone, right? You want to, oh, he killed 2 people. I'm going to play heads up, and I'm going to stop whatever mid guy's trying to, or whatever back center guy's trying to break out. That would be the important thing there. That sounds amazing. Good luck, Eric. Yeah, that sounds really fun. That'll be cool, man. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. I guess while we're on the subject of like advanced tactics, here's something that I would highly recommend everybody apply and utilize. Okay, we've done this exercise several times, but this is a really, really good exercise for everybody to do, and it's super helpful to intuitively understand what's going on without knowing maybe even the exact kill count or the exact positioning of players. So there's certain rules that we can kind of utilize when we play paintball, or certain things that we can expect in a normal match of paintball. Okay. And that is that, typically speaking, people are not going to double up bunkers the further up the field you go. Like, how many tournaments has anybody seen? I don't even care what division you could reference. How many tournaments have we seen where 2 players would be like in this Dorito, or 2 players would be like in this snake? It doesn't happen, right? We can all realize that this doesn't happen. Now, slightly behind that, what you'll also kind of notice is that people don't usually try to get really close to each other. Higher up the divisional ranks you go, this is especially true, but you usually want to give some kind of spacing to your teammates, unless the positioning is specifically good, right? If you find that, like, there's been a few snake sides and several NXL layouts, I think it was 2021, or maybe it was actually World Cup 2019, that I can remember, where it was actually better. It was easier for you to support your snake guy if you were like right behind him. Okay. The World Cup 2019 layout, you can see that because you just didn't have much of an angle to like support your teammate. So that was an exception to the rule, where like you want to be right next to them, even in like a long drawn out point, five alive, right? But generally speaking, you'll find that people are not usually right next to each other. In some cases, it might be that in the Doritos they are, but that's not usually the case in even the snake, right? You won't usually find a snake guy here and a snake guy here. You might find a snake guy here and here, but not this close, right? Okay, so what does this tell us? This tells us that we can, with reasonable certainty, assume where our opponents will be based on who we killed just then, right? And the way that we can assume that is by drawing certain zones on the field. And I've done this exercise a lot, so I'm sorry for some of you that are like, oh my gosh, this again. But there are certain zones that we can draw on the field that are somewhat intuitive, that help inform us as to where our opponents will likely be. There's usually anywhere between 4 and 5 zones, okay? Now, in the case of Bro Army, we have names for these zones, which we have gotten from the AC camp. And they're old enough now that I'm comfortable sharing with them. I mean, everybody knows what they are at this point, so I don't think there's any sort of like secrecy to them. And they've probably even changed since they've been shared with us. But for example, San Diego Dynasty, they only really use 2 zones. And that's fine, because I think 2 zones is actually totally sufficient, which would be the outer zones right here. So they call the snake side Charger, and they call the Dorito side Dragon. So if they say Charger, it means there's nobody in this zone. If they say dragon, dragon, they mean no one's in this zone. And why is that useful? Well, that's useful because it gives your front player all the confidence they need to just quickly get down the field and then just wrap and destroy everybody. And vice versa, right? On the Doritos side, it gives you the confidence to not get bogged down in any sort of these back bunkers, and instead just like quickly wrap and go. Wrap on the outside of your bunker and then go up the field and just chop everybody up. But what is the advantage of having these other zones in your head when you look at a layout? Well, the advantage is that these are generally the zones that people will be in, and we can do this for literally any layout, okay? I can do this for every single layout on Guns Up. So this, well, let's name the zones really quick and I'll explain. So this zone, the widest zone on the snake side is called Arizona. Behind that is Oklahoma. The center zone is either Utah or Texas. I think we've been calling it Texas recently. And then this is Iowa, Nevada. There is a logic to this. I don't care to explain it. It is what it is. And you can name these whatever you want. But there's an advantage to using these zones, which is to say that if I shout Arizona to my teammate, who I'm like, let's say I'm right behind him and I say Arizona, that means there's nobody in the snake zone. If I say Oklahoma, that means there's nobody in these two zones. If I say Texas, this is where it gets a little tricky, because if I say there's nobody in this zone, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't anybody in this zone, right? Because it's directional at that point. So that there are problems with this zone, and there's a lot of people. I know there's a lot of pro teams that have strong opinions about these zones specifically, and we have strong opinions too. But I'm just this is I think useful information to just have. So this means that likely there will be one person in this zone, one person in this zone, 1, 1, 1. Okay, in any like standard practical breakout. And like a default breakout, this will be true like 80% of the time, okay? 90% of the time even. So that means that if I kill somebody in the snake, if I'm shooting, let's say from the snake corner, and I kill somebody in the snake, where is my gun going to go immediately after? It should go to stopping the person right behind him. Now that might mean that I shoot directly at him, or that might mean that I just shoot a zone that keeps him out of this next zone. So that as we draw on these lines, it means that if I pick up on the fact that, okay, there's not going to be two people likely here. If I saw them, right? It could be the case that there's somebody in the snake corner and somebody in the snake one. But if I saw where my opponents were heads up and I kill the snake guy and I see him walk off the field, then my gun should immediately turn and start shooting either directly at the guy behind him or in a zone that prevents him from freely getting out wide. This is a mistake that even pro teams make because it's hard. It's hard to respond to this really quickly. There's a lot of times where like pro players will have gotten hit and they'll be waiting for a ref to come check them, and their teammate knows that they're dead, and so their teammate uses this intel that they have that is exclusive to them to quickly and immediately fill out. That is a really hard thing to respond to. But if their opponents are slow to respond, then that gives obviously you plenty of time to start shooting that zone and preventing them from filling out freely. Because in my last video, as you guys saw, what was the point? If you shot a guy out in the snake one and you just let them fill in right away, why did you shoot him out of the snake one, right? You don't want them in the snake, so shoot them so they can't get into the snake, okay? So again, this is true that if we shoot the snake, we shoot the guy behind him, and now we start shooting the center. So this gives our front player, especially, I mean, this is true for a lot of positions, but this gives our front player all the freedom and the confidence they need to know that there isn't going to be a guy who immediately fills out to the corner and then kills them as they are moving down the wire, because you, as the guy behind them, is doing your job, okay? You can do this. You can zone control as the front player. You can do the same thing where you just wrap and stop the guy behind him. But your job is to move up the field. And so you should only take over that job temporarily until your teammates behind you can pick it up from you. Does that make sense? So if I'm in the snake one and I stand up over the top of my bunker and I'm shooting the guy to prevent him from filling out, I should only do that as long as it takes for the guy behind me to pick up that job from me, to take it from me and then give me the freedom to go. Because otherwise as long as it takes me to move up the field, that is as long as it'll take for us to decompress our positioning. Does that make sense? For us to like relieve this pressure that I am inadvertently applying to myself and our team. Okay? You want to expand your positioning. You want to get away from the start box and to do so as quickly as possible. Remember playing my first 3-man with my 2 little brothers. Wicked fun. Just explain the basics of how to play, and like Zekin said, regulate their emotions, and we came in second. That's awesome. At practice, we won most of the points we played, so I think we might do better than people might think. Good. That's awesome. Good luck. Sounds like a team preference thing, to be honest. Team preference thing. I think the zones, I think the zones are universally a good thing to utilize. If you need to understand zone control and like containment paintball, I think the zones is a perfect tool for that. There are problems with zones, and I could go in great detail about that, but we don't need to tonight. But there are definitely problems with zones for sure. But generally speaking, I think zones are an excellent way to learn how to play proper paintball by simply containing your opponents when you've killed them out of certain bunkers. If that's all that you learn from zones, bingo, that was what they were for. So again, this is true for the Dorito. If we kill a guy out of the Dorito, then the next thing I'm going to be looking for is the guy behind him, where he will likely, and these are the bunkers he will be in. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. But again, a lot of people just use Charger Dragon or something. A lot of people use that, and those are usually generally all you need, because if everybody knows what they should do, if everybody knows what they should do when they hear Charger or Dragon, then you're fine. You don't need the zones. It's just that a lot of times people are slow to know what to do in lower divisions, even as high as like Division 2. Some people are not quite sure. Like I can't tell you how many raw footage videos I watch where people are just like futzing around after they kill the first guy, and their guns are down after they killed the front player, and then the dude behind him just fills out to the corner, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you're in Division 2. There's no excuse for this. Like, you should be shooting and containing that guy. Just that's it. Just shoot paint where you want to keep them out of. So anyway, there's a lot more reasons as to why people make that mistake, but we won't go into it. So okay. I'm probably going to stream a little bit past 10 because we're coming up on that time right now, but we've only been streaming for, I think, since 9:25. So I feel like this is why lower divisional teams look dopey closing out games. Oh, totally. My best piece of advice for lower division teams is that except for the front players, everybody should constantly be shooting their guns. I think it's really kind of odd to me why the lower the divisional ranks you go, the less amount of paint people bring. Now, I think there is something to be said about the cost of paintball, and that generally like that usually correlates, right? Like, you're not usually prepared to dump a bunch of money playing paintball if you're only playing in like Division 5 and 4. And so that kind of correlates, but like, if you want to be a really successful Division 4 team, you should come out as a number 2. You should go out with 7 pods at least. As a number 3, go out with 8, 9, maybe even 10 pods a game, and make it a goal to shoot those pods. Because if you do, you will absolutely murder everybody that you play against. You will apply so much pressure that people in those divisions will not know what to do about it. Now, obviously, if you're really sloppy behind your bunker, and maybe like when you reload, you're inaccurate, or you're kind of like exposing your hopper and you get clipped, like, there are ways to counter that are mostly mechanical mistakes. But like, if you play tight behind your bunker and you can hold a stream, you can hold a lane while you reload, I'm telling you, if you want to win games, all you got to do is just shoot a bunch of paint and just wrap on the outside of the field. The thing I see killing so many teams is that the number 2s especially will just like abandon their front player in front of them and look on the inside of the field and then start shooting that. And it's like, guys, if all you did was to play on the outside of the field and shoot what's in front of you, and your teammate was to just push accordingly, you guys would win every point. Because the center does not become a big factor until about probably not even until Division 2. It becomes a factor in Division 3, but like, a lot of people get planked out in the center in Division 3. So I feel like the center, and like a really intelligent center who knows what they're doing, is not really a factor until like high Division 3, bottom Division 2. And so you can kind of ignore the center for the most part until about then. And so if everybody just plays heads up and plays like basic paintball, where you're just shooting a bunch of paint at each other, or shooting a bunch of paint at your opponents and holding zones, dude, you're going to win so quickly, especially if your mechanics are really good. I feel like this was, I read that. I'm D5, and on Saturday, we were all holding at least 8 pods. It was a passive layout. Yeah, and certainly some layouts are a lot more obvious that that's what you should do. But there are some layouts where it's not as obvious, and it's actually much harder to fight for those zones because they're really small. But it's still really good practice to be working on holding zones like that, right? Okay, we talked about in part 1, we talked about tactics related to flipping the field and plugging the hole. Generally speaking, try to flip the field on your opponents. Try to capitalize on your advantage rather than trying to stop, the hole in your defense. Especially in like the late game, you should just try to push your side of the field if you can. The next thing is we did start talking about Pocket before the stream crashed. But I think the last thing we wanted to talk about was like problem solving and working with your teammates, which is a bit of a sidestep, so I won't take much time on this. Our biggest focus this season, now that we have air, paint, good, cheaper, 4,500 fills, is containment and zoning. Your advice here is very helpful. Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, if you can afford to do it at practice, it is a really, really good habit to establish. My opinion is that you should absolutely put in the work, like do a bunch of drills, do more drills than you want to, but it will pay it off in dividends. But also when you do play points against your teammates, you should only play 2 pods and a hopper, in my opinion, because it will encourage communication and movement. But then when you get closer to a tournament, you need to shift gears and shoot a lot of paint. Like at least 2 weekends prior to the event, if not even 3-4 weekends prior to an event, you should be getting in the mode of shooting a lot of paint and getting used to what that pressure feels like. Because what's helpful about shooting 2 pods and a hopper is that it teaches your front players that if they're not getting shot, they should be moving. They should be fighting to move if that's the case, if that's what's happening. But there are moments in 5v5s with like full packs where your front player really can't do anything. But you need to practice to do that. You need to practice shooting so much paint at your opponent's front player that they literally are useless for 20, 30 seconds. But if you're not used to doing that and you're just like not holding a zone, or you're not applying a lot of pressure to them, then you're just going to give up you're going to give up territory freely. You're going to allow people to like go through your gap even if you're staring at it because you're not used to shooting that much paint. But as a number 2 and a number 3, if all you did was just hold a zone and you did so accurately and you learned how to gunfight while loading, dude, you will apply so much pressure to your opponents and you'll just win. You'll just win every tournament you go to. Pretty hard to shoot 10 pods when you only get 2,500 filled. Yeah, that's true. We were forced to play 4 pods max at all the time before the season. Yeah, that would, yeah, 4,500 fill is going to be huge for you. Okay, let's talk really quickly about problem solving. We don't really need this layout here. We don't really even need any of this, and I don't want to write stuff down. So I'll just have this as a backdrop. Okay. Couple things. I don't care to get too into this for today's stream because it might be worth to just like spend more time on this later. But there is a question from the Discord server that's like, hey, how do I tell my teammate to like F off? Which I assume is really to say, how do I like criticize my teammate and like correct them and help them? And just so you know, I feel credible. I feel like I have the credibility to talk about this because of what I took, some of the classes I took in college. I took an organizational conflict class, managing conflict, managing people. Like I took a lot of like management classes because I was a business management major. So I do know some basic things about how to manage conflict resolution. And I'm not talking about like the sandwich method or anything like that. Most people know that already. But the first thing is that if you want, first of all, you should team with people that can take criticism. Like that's the first thing I would tell anybody. If you're teaming with people that have egos that do not accept criticism, then you are wasting your time. Okay? Because the going will get hard. At some point, you will reach a breaking point with your team. And if you guys can't effectively or have a healthy conversation about why things aren't going well, then that team falls apart right then and there. And it might not happen in 6 months. It might not happen in a year. It might happen 2-3 years down the road. But if you stayed in the same division or maybe only even bumped up 1 division in 3 years, for most people, I would tell you you've wasted your time. Therapy Zekin, absolutely. Therapy Zekin segment. I need glasses. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, not everybody's goal in paintball is to go pro. So you might not feel this pressure to like move up the divisional ranks, but I promise you that the higher up the divisional ranks you go, the more fulfilling paintball becomes. I just feel that that's true. Okay. I think all the people that have been playing paintball for years that are just staying in Division 4 are just kind of losers. Like You certainly might have fun and you might be stroking your ego because you're smashing people in Division 4, but nobody cares that you win a Division 4 tournament. Literally no one cares. And so if you want to have more fulfillment, which isn't just to say that, like fulfillment only comes externally, right? But like if you want to really feel fulfilled in paintball, you need to learn how to push yourself and push your limits and go beyond what you think you can do. And that, in my opinion, it was what entails moving up the divisional ranks. Okay, so back to what we were saying earlier. If you need to vet your teammates very early on. You need to make sure that you guys are aligned in your goals, at least somewhat. Again, it might be that some of you want to go pro, some of you don't. But as long as each one of you has the goal of improving and getting better over the course of the season, then you're golden. That's all you need, okay? Once you've established that, giving criticism is really easy. Remove as much emotion as you can from what it is that you have to say and just stick to the meat and potatoes of it, right? If you're really upset that you got run down because, like, let's say, for example, I guess here's how I can use this. If you're here and you got a teammate here and he looked on the inside of the field and because of it, you got ran down, if you decide to criticize him right there, it's going to be very difficult to not yell at him. And that's okay sometimes. Like Ryan Greenspan says, like, you guys need to have fire under your feet. Like, you need to feel this sense of urgency, because sometimes it's okay to tell your teammates, hey dude, don't ever let that happen again. If you let that happen again, like, I'm done. Or you don't want to threaten teammates, but like, it's okay to let your teammates know that what they did isn't acceptable so that they don't do it again. But it's not okay to say, dude, you're an effing idiot. How many times do we have to do this? Like, we've done this so many times. Or like, I can't believe you dropped your gun. Why would you do that? Yada, yada, yada. You throw in all this fluff and then you end it with, you need to hold the outside zone so I don't get run down. Like, well, you should have just said that, right? If you want to know a perfect example of somebody who's awful at giving criticism, go watch Imperial Hal, TSM Imperial Hal, who's an Apex Pro. Most of you guys would know who he is. Go watch that guy. Guy's like most toxic individual I've ever seen in esports. He's like the worst at giving criticism. So that's not helpful, but try to remove the emotion from it and try to establish common ground, right? Common ground at any given point is we want to win the point. Okay. And the way that we win the point is that we make sure that we control the outside wide game. And if you drop that for a second to even just shoot a crossfield zone that's not really effective for you to do, making me vulnerable and susceptible to being run down, that is not achieving the goal of winning the point. And it might not even have to be that like macro. It really could just be as simple as, if you look on the inside of the field, I can't make my next bump. I am at your mercy until you decide to then play heads up and control the tape or control the wire. I have to stay here. And as long as you do that, we're not gonna be able to move up the field. We're not gonna be able to move up the snake side. And it can be as simple as that, right? You don't have to say like, and then we won't win the point. It's like, we all know that. But like, that's a really easy way to criticize your teammates. In my opinion, I always feel grounded in my criticism towards people, generally speaking, when I'm trying to adhere to the most logical, or when rather I'm trying to appeal to the most logical position or argument. Okay. So a very logical appeal, like I just said, was, well, if you look on the inside of the field, I then have to move up the snake by myself. That is the logical conclusion of that play. And if I have to move down the field by myself because our team depends on me to do so, and I might be fighting a 2v1, well, that's not good. Like, those are terrible odds. So you need to stay on the outside of the field until I get to their side and we win the point, right? Or it might be that, hey, when, like, let's say, for example, another one might be, hey, dude, after the first 10 seconds of the point, you never look on the inside of the field. So, like, let's say, for example, this was the breakout and this guy dies. Okay. And let's say that this dude just stays heads up the entire time. Well, it might be that the point starts to fall apart everywhere around this guy. Okay. Maybe even before that happens, this dude is alive and he's shouting to his teammate, hey, look this way, cross. And this dude is just like tunnel visioning, looking heads up. And he's like, oh, I'm just going to try and get to the Doritos or whatever. Then that's a really easy point of criticism. And it doesn't have to be like, again, maybe you get run down. Maybe you get run down because you were trying to establish a cross and this guy wasn't doing it or whatever. Well, it's absolutely the case that this guy should have at least looked over and watched over your team, watched over you, right? Or at least just connected in some way. But it's very easy to say why that's the reason, right? Like, dude, look, you need to like see what's going on the inside of the field. You needed to know that we were in a down body situation instead of trying to push up the field, because even if in the first 5 seconds of the point we lose 3 bodies, you need to know that. That is on you to figure that out. And if you're just like playing derpy heads up, like tunnel visioned paintball, then that's on you to not know what's going on. And I was trying to shout your name and tell you, look over this way, and you just didn't, you weren't listening. You just didn't hear me or whatever. And so then from there you can establish like, well, at the very least, at the very moment that we recognize we're down bodies, we need to establish some kind of cross and then just like figure out where people are at. Like we need to just find the bodies. We need to stay connected and find the bodies, because otherwise we will always lose a 2v whatever, a 2vx, if this player always tunnel visions and never listens to what's going on. Anyway, that's, I mean, I'm already saying what you guys already know. So, I'm not sure if T.O. Ball is in the chat, but on my Discord server, he asks, what do you think about stainless steel inserts? I got no problem with the weight. Real guns are heavier. Yeah, real guns are heavier. My only thing is like, I've played with carbon fiber, or rather like really light barrels my entire paintball career. So I just like the lightweight. I think the only reason why you choose stainless steel is if you intend to like core sample your barrel, and at that point, like I just don't see the value. I think the only reason that you go for stainless steel is that they're less susceptible to temperature changes, but I think that whole like temperature change is like kind of overhyped. I don't think it results in any sort of accuracy decrease with like the Freak XL kits, for example. And I mean, if anything, if the temperature changes, you should be more worried about just what you're boring generally, because your paint's going to change. That would be what I would say to that. All right. I was like, I recognize this layout. Yes, this is the Sunshine State Major layout. Okay. P Ward, welcome to the part 2 of this stream, because the first part my computer crashed. So if you haven't seen the first part, go check that out. We talked about what did we talk about? We talked about flipping the field or plugging the hole. I think it was a really good subject. I found that sometimes including a compromise, like if you have to look inside, at least tell me, is helpful to smooth things out. Absolutely. And that's true. Like there's certainly situations in which what you're coming out with your teammate is kind of a subjective issue. And so you got to keep that in mind. How do you deal with someone who always has excuses? Dude, if they're your teammate, just tell them that. If they're your teammate, like if they're people that you don't really normally team with, I actually just ignore it. I'm just like, dude, I have to just suffer this for however long we're playing points together, but you're not my teammate and I don't care. I feel like I've played with a few people that are like that, and I usually just end up ignoring them. But in the case where we have teammates that are always coming up with excuses, I think, again, constantly appealing to the logical like reason as to why you lost is really helpful in like giving you a lot of credibility to your argument. But I think it's also okay to just be like, dude, literally every single time we try to come together and problem solve as a team, you are always essentially explaining to us why it's not your fault. And like, certainly it is your fault some of the time, even 1/5 of the time, right? So I think that's something that's totally acceptable to tell a teammate. But if it keeps happening, it's one of the reasons why having a coach is really helpful. Because if you have a coach, they can kind of be an objective, neutral party to resolving any sort of conflict, especially between two players. So if two players are just not getting along, something's happening, it's totally like you need to have an advocate in that situation, or a mediator rather. And if he's like, yeah, you're not going to accept any responsibility to like whatever happens, then boom, just kick him. Not worth it. This is the best content in paintball because you tell it all. Not afraid to give up your secrets, as they said. Thanks and keep it up. Brendan Reed, my guy. One sec. Thank you. Wait. Thank you. I thought this was supposed to auto-tune you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I was trying to make something fun, but I always plan to core sample. That's my secret. I always core sample. Yeah. So for some of you guys that are new here, I'll wrap up the stream here in just a minute because we are over time. First of all, if you're not in the Discord server, be sure to join the Discord server. The link is in any of my videos, but I'll send the link in the chat right now. Here's the thing. Here's my philosophy. Okay. Before you guys leave, I promise this is worth the stay. So the reason I created this channel. So some of you know this, some of you don't. I've been playing paintball for off and on for like 16, 17 years. Okay. I'm 30 years old. I may not look it, but I'm old. And I started playing paintball when I was like 13. And I don't mean like rec ball. I mean like my first tournament I was 13. And one of the things that I found, so in the early stages of paintball, which obviously at 13 years old, that was not the early stages of paintball. The early stages of paintball was like 1989. But from when I joined to close to when I took my first major break, which was about 17 years old, I found that like everybody was learning and sharing freely the knowledge that they had, especially if you joined a good team. If you joined a good team, there was like a camp, which my first team I joined was called Addicts Factory. Well, my first major team I joined was called Addicts Factory. And we had, I think, 3 squads. And we had some really experienced players that were playing Division 2. Or like the equivalent, right? It was like 7-man amateur or something. And they were sharing their knowledge. They were sharing their knowledge and information. And that was really, really helpful as a new player. And this is well before the days of YouTube, right? Well, then all of a sudden, you know, I take a step back from paintball. I come back and the meta of paintball has shifted so much because I was playing mostly 7-mans. And then when I came back, it was a lot of like PSP, NXL type stuff, you know, 12 balls, 12.5, whatever. And it was just such a different game. And there was no information anywhere about how to get better. Like the forums, like PB Nation was there, but it didn't really have a whole lot of content. At this point, YouTube existed. And there was a few videos out there, but it was a lot about like the mechanics of paintball. There was very little strategy anywhere to be found on YouTube or really anywhere on the internet. And then around the 2012, maybe later, maybe like 2014 era is when, and I will obfuscate this detail. But then there started to pop up like organizations and companies that were trying to monetize or gatekeep behind a paywall their knowledge and expertise about paintball. Now, I love capitalism, so I have no issues with this from that perspective. But I think generally speaking, it feels pretty crappy that the most experienced players in the sport are gatekeeping their information behind a paywall when literally no other sport does this. Now, you might say, well, they do that because you have to pay for like a private coach, or they do that because you have to pay for this or blah, 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 blah. But the truth of the matter is that if you look up anything related to basketball or football or whatever, you will find pro players freely sharing information. And it's funny because like you can make money off of YouTube by sharing your information freely. That's the hope of this channel, right? So I have a big problem. Let it be known publicly that as a person, as an individual, I have a big problem with a lot of the ideas surrounding gatekeeping information behind a paywall. I don't have subscriptions to other like channels or other services like that. So I'm not like leaking their information, but I want to share with everybody what I have learned from playing paintball. And because I've been playing it long enough and I consider myself a fairly analytical person, I feel like what I can say about the game is insightful. It's interesting, I think. And I think the way that I view it particularly is different than how others view it. And I want to share the way, like the thing that I enjoy the most, what I get the most fulfillment out of is being able to articulate something in such a way that the person not only understands the principle, but understands it the way that I do. And that's what I enjoy about teaching and coaching and sharing what I know. If you guys lived in Utah and you came to the Bro Army camp, you would know that like I'm very actively involved in coaching the players that are on our team, and I find a lot of fulfillment. And that's the purpose of this channel. So the only constraint with me sharing is all the information that I have which if you guys haven't seen at this point, maybe I shouldn't be showing you like some of this. But like, I'm just going to breeze through this really quickly. This isn't even all of it, but I have like outlines for a lot of videos, and I have a lot more outlines for more in like the topics and titles document, which I'm not going to, that's actually kind of old. That's more esports stuff. The only time constraint is money and time. So the hope is that I can do this full time so that I can hire somebody to help me edit videos, because that's the biggest constraint right now. I'm just not like, I don't have a ton of experience editing videos. So what you see is all me, but it takes a while. So anyway, that's a bit of my rant and philosophy related to the sport. But I do appreciate everybody who's been super supportive of the channel, people who've liked, commented, subscribed, all of that. The new members that we've recently got to the channel. If you guys don't know, if you're like, hey, that sounds awesome, I want more of this, you absolutely can support me in other ways besides, you know, commenting, subscribing, and liking. You can become a member on YouTube if you so feel. But otherwise, I just, you know, just sharing the videos is super, super helpful. So let me catch up with the chat. I do normally read chat as I go. I don't normally just ignore you guys. So any advice for someone new to the world of speedball? Played my first D5 tournament and didn't do too hot. Nonetheless, a hell of a lot of fun and can't wait for the next one. My biggest piece of advice, I think actually people make a mistake in playing tournaments a little too early. I don't think it's actually that common. I think most people have kind of a rec ball experience related to speedball before they play in a tournament. But I actually think that if you're not careful, you'll burn yourself out really quickly if you play speedball with the intention of being really competitive really early on. My biggest advice is just play a lot of paintball. Just if you're having fun, consume it as much as you can. Right? If you're like, but I really like the tournament aspect, that's great. That's totally fine. Just know that a lot of what comes to you you gain a lot. Let me just say it this way. You gain a lot through experience in paintball. And I think what you gain mostly is the ability to regulate your stress and adrenaline such that you can then make better decisions. Because prior to that, you're just like an anxious, paranoid, adrenaline rushed freak, right? It's really, really hard to play paintball in a tournament with that kind of stress on you and make good decisions and not just get absolutely plastered. Like, you could have really good mechanics, but it's not going to help you because, you know, again, you're just super tunnel visioned and like wired. So my experience is just practice, play as many points as you can, and make sure that you're always playing against people who are better than you. Because if at your local field, you can play against, like, if you're brand new to paintball, but at your local field, you can play against D4, some really experienced D4 or even D3 players, and maybe you even over time you start to eliminate them or even beat them, then when you go to play in a tournament that's like D5 or D4, like, who cares? Who are those people? Like, you've gotten experience against high D3 players or whatever, right? So that's my biggest piece of advice, is just play a lot of paintball, avoid burnout. I knew you gain a following. Truth and honest opinion. Bobby, I appreciate you for saying that, buddy. Thank you. Joe, sorry, I'm way behind on chat. You guys are awesome. There's still barely any channels that actually pull up a damn layout and go through the intricacies of the game. Yeah, which is really surprising. That's kind of weird to me. Check out some of his other videos. It's an absolute treasure trove. I'd recommend starting with the Why You're Stuck in Division 5 and Only X-Player Guide You'll Ever Need for What You Play. Yeah, so just so you guys know, I have a new video coming out very soon called Breakouts and Game Plans. I have the script finished. I just need to finish filming it and then editing. So that video, I don't think it'll be out tomorrow. It won't be out tomorrow, but it'll definitely be out next week. And that after that video is when I'll finish the only back player guide you'll ever need. So then I'll have the front mid and back player guides out. But yeah, dude, I love those. I actually really have enjoyed making those series. Paintball is team chess with guns, so strategy is highly guarded. Not sure if that's the reason or not. Yeah, but like, if you guys want to know the secrets of paintball, go to Zen The Art of Paintball. 1 second. If you guys want to consume like a ton of information from Mike Bianca of now pro team New Orleans Hurricanes, that guy literally exposes everything. And I mean everything. It is a blog, so that comes with like some ideas in people's heads, but like, if you read it, he will tell you. If you want to know why they won, why they absolutely blew out Uprising in their first match, or why they lost barely to like Russian Legion and Impact, he will tell you why. And he'll be very specific. So that to me is like the best blog in paintball. No questions asked. So be sure to go read that. SVP, you're the man. Thank you for taking the time and hooking it up again. Solid breakout and pocket play and zone coverage. Make that money. Joe, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I hope you're in the Discord. I strongly believe in that old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. Yes, I believe in that as well. Yeah, all this is exactly why I'm so into your content. Thanks so much for your knowledge. I appreciate that. Thank you. I wish I could call you by your first name because it feels kind of weird to say YK Paintball. I know you're PB Ninja on Twitch, but let's see. Okay, here we go. I noticed a dearth of info on strategy and the internet too. That's why I subscribed to your channel. You rock. Thank you, Porter. It's so funny when I'm watching paintball videos. I almost always see you in the comment section, and I'm like, hey, I know that guy. The roles video you made is serious level up material. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. I'm really excited about the back player guide, but my MO moving forward after watching more videos on like recommendations for making YouTube videos is I'm gonna do better at being more direct, and I'm going to try to make the videos short. So I'm going to try to make videos between 5 and 7 minutes. I think 10 minutes is totally fine, but I still really like the mid-player guide, but I think I could have been a bit more concise because I got a little verbose. So I'm going to try to do better at that. Well, you're very intelligent and great at articulating your point. Well, I'll give you the articulating my point. My wife would agree with you, which everybody's super sweet in saying that, but let's see. Will do. I'm still figuring out what I fit best. I'm just going wherever my coach tells me to. Dude, Fixel, if you're that way, if you're like, coach, put me where you need me, you will go far. You will go super far. The people that struggle are mostly the ones that create a lot of confinements or restrictions with their coaches. If they're like, hey, I can only do this thing, well, then that means that your coach only has like a limited resource in you. So if you're willing to play the snake, 1, 2, really anything, then you're going to be like a huge threat to your opponents, but also a big asset to your team. I've also got a video for beginners as well if you want to check it out, but Zekin's stuff is seriously top notch. Dude, absolutely give YK Paintball a look. And yes, most play tourney too early, and it's so much fun, hard to resist. It is. If I just played rec ball, I wouldn't play paintball. Maybe that's not true, actually. I think I still would, but I played rec ball for about a year, and I'm practicing against my D4, D2 players. So that's okay. Well, perfect. Then you're in the perfect situation. Not worried about ranking up. Would rather get better than climbing super fast. No, that's awesome. I didn't know you'd played for as long as you have, so that's great. Let them know who you are on the field first before in person. Yeah. If you're like, who the heck is this guy that just freaking bunkered the crap out of me? And you're like, oh, hey, buddy, that's me. Then you'll get a lot of respect that way. Did that and not got asked to join a team, but just from eliminating them consistently. That's awesome, Lamau. No, I have never seen this before. Lol, it's fine. That's how I got offered a spot. I came to my legit first time playing speedball and didn't say anything and just showed up with my field with my friends and we balled out. That's awesome. Never skip 6 fighting day. Intelligent, aka you actually try hard to understand and relay. Yeah, if that's your definition of intelligence, I appreciate that. I am 16, 6'2", and athletic, and will do whatever it takes to get better. Dude, 6'2". I wish I was that tall. Okay, I think we have reached the end of the stream. I'm glad that we ended up doing this. My wife is very encouraging and encouraged me to do this. Before the stream started, I was kind of in a bad mood, so computer stuff sometimes. Okay, guys, if you haven't joined the Discord, be sure to join the Discord. I'm super accessible there. If you have questions, you want to share videos, clips, whatever, we got a great community. So be sure to join the Discord server. I'll link it one more time. Just make sure that when you join, you go to the roles server and choose a role for either gamer or paintballer. Usually 5 days a week, I stream video games. The only other thing about me that most people don't know, unless you're in the Discord server, is that I used to play semi-professional Halo, and I don't mean that as like I'm not trying to gain clout by saying that, but like I actually did used to play semi-professional paintball, Halo. For both, I would argue Halo 5, but definitely for Halo Reach. So I have a lot of esports competitive experience. I played a lot of other esports titles as well. So I stream 5 days a week. Right now I'm streaming Apex. Before I was streaming Halo. So if you guys want to like chill, play games, watch, maybe learn something, I don't know. I approach gaming very much so like paintball has informed gaming and gaming has informed paintball. So it's kind of one and the same for me. So if you guys enjoy gaming content, it's always available. I don't stream on YouTube when I do that. I stream on Twitch. But that is it. Games and paintball, gotta love it. I play on my high school Valorant team. Dude, nice. I used to play Counter-Strike Source competitively a long time ago, but only online. And then I got LEM and Counter-Strike Global Offensive. So I have a lot of like tactical shooter experience, but I didn't play Valorant a whole lot. So I'm kind of bad. But anyway, thanks guys so much. I'm going to stop rambling. I hope you guys have a blessed Thursday, and I will see you guys maybe tomorrow on a video game stream if you join me there. Otherwise, have a good one, guys. Peace. OJ, to answer your question, can you make money streaming even if you super suck? Absolutely. If you're trying to imply that I super suck, I'm not going to even disagree with you. I'm kind of a boomer. I don't think people watch me play video games because I'm super good. I think they watch me because I'm funny and I'm enjoyable to watch. So anyway, all right, peace.